really special treat here today. I've got 3 completely different Robert mouthpieces. They're some of the best mouthpieces ever made, and this is part of the danger of when you do find a good vintage mouthpiece, you have no idea really what it's going to play like, not just because of hand facing, but because of radically different designs, even of the same name. So here's the first one. It has a serial number and block lettering. So, for me, that really doesn't play like a Robert. The baffle is kind of U-shaped, and I'm going to include a video of the 3 baffles. And that kind of reminds me of an Henri Leroy mouthpiece. Similar in ways to Lauren Kit in some ways. Kind of almost has a Caspar sound, like a French Caspar, if you will. This is a soliste, Robert soliste. I'm not sure if these were before or after or produced at the same time for different markets. This has a much more French sound. So, Brad Bain faced the first one, the block with the serial number, and I really love his work. That one was another famous refacer. I got it from a famous player in one of America's great orchestras. He's still there now. And also a very nice refacer, but I prefer the facing on Brad's. I'm a lot more comfortable with it. Well, the sound of the first one is clearly much wider. So this one is another block lettering, but it's a completely different blank. The first Robert has a very fat blank, again similar to an Henri Leroy mouthpiece. This has a skinnier blank, but not quite as skinny as the soliste. So the first one, very fat blank. Second one, very thin blank. This one's kind of in between. This is all original facing. Of the two, it has more of that springy response like the soliste, but it has a little bit wider sound. The baffle on this one is very similar to an Henri Chedevilles that I have, and also similar to a really good M14 that I have. And this plays the most like my Henri Chedevilles, but the sound is still darker, a little bit more open. The second one is clearly much tighter. So the second one actually reminds me of a really nice mouthpiece. This is a low logo Lalande. I'm still using the same reed. Tell me that this doesn't remind you a lot of the soliste. And I'll play the soliste again right after to make that comparison. little bit extroverted for me. It's still wonderful French sound, but that more lean sound. Here's the soliste again, same reed. Again, I don't like the facing on this one as much. That Lalande Brad Bain did, so I'm really comfortable with it. Reminds me of a really good perfecta in some ways, just with a little bit more projection. Let me go back to the serial number 1, and I'll compare it to the mouthpiece that it reminds me the most of. I don't know exactly when Leroy took over the factory. Leroy was Mahler's principal clarinetist in the New York Phil. Here's the first one again. Doesn't sound too French to me if I play Cahuzac. But I think like Weber or Brahms on this, sure. So this is the one that reminds me the most of this one, is a mellophone by Eugene Berceau. And it also, the internals feel big, feels really powerful and wide like a Kaspar, but not quite as, with more core. Sounds a lot, feels a lot like that Robert, except that Robert has this darker quality, or more open quality. This one, I can make this like Benny Goodman, you know? Versus, I'm going to try the same thing on the Robert. So that one, that mellophone, is kind of like the block Robert, but with so much overdrive that it turns into almost a jazz or klezmer mouthpiece. Great Rhapsody in Blue mouthpiece, that mellophone. That doesn't work at all for that. So, yeah, you know, I'll throw one last French mouthpiece in the mix here. This is a very early Selmer low logo, and this is very French as well. That reminds me the most of the soliste. But I don't like the voicing as much. I don't like the response as much. So what I'll say about the soliste is it kind of has the sound of a Lalande or an early Selmer, but it voices like a Bettany. The block logo with the really nice baffle, very similar to an Henri Chedevilles, not quite as big, but a little darker, a little more intimate. And the block logo with the serial number is a lot like a Leroy, or even a little bit, I think, like a mellophone, and also a little bit like a Kaspar. So these mouthpieces are some of my favorite ever of all time. And I knew of, so you might say, okay, well, if I get one, I could always get it refaced. Well, I don't know if I will get that original one refaced, because an original facing that plays well like that is really rare. It's extremely rare. It's unbelievably rare. It's unfathomably rare. And I was talking with Ron Rubin of the Philadelphia Orchestra. He had a great Robert once that he had refaced, and he could never quite get it as good as the original facing. So it kind of is a minefield. I even have someone I know who says the names don't mean anything. Robert, whether it says artistic facing, quality superior, Henri, Charles, whatever it says, Bettany, whatever it says, it's just about what are the internals like. How does it tune? How does it respond? Is the exit bore big or is it small? Is the throat too wide? What is the window? Is the window too wide? And these names are just indicators of quality. So that's not to say like that these with the refacings also sound really good, but that original one also sounds really good. These really make playing a lot of fun. They're some of the most fun mouthpieces to play. And I think if I think of a perfecta, a good perfecta as kind of a soloist mouthpiece, a la Louis Cahuzac, and I think of a Chedevilles, especially Henri, as an orchestral mouthpiece, these are somewhere in between, to varying degrees, as you see here. There's a spectrum of Roberts.